Alright, on to the Galar region. Probably the most controversial set of Pokemon games in its entire history. But for me personally, I feel like the Sword and Shield gym leaders are actually pretty well made and substantiated in the universe, not gonna lie. And I'm far from the only person that thinks that, which is why for this section of the video, I actually have a guest on with me, Crane.
Hi guys, I'm Crane. I sometimes stream on my channel, but not really a YouTuber. I know Plexi IRL, and I really like Pokemon.
You see guys, that means he's an expert on the gym leader analysis. Alright, without further ado, let's just get into it. Alright, for the first gym leader of Galar, we have Milo, the grass-type gym leader. He's an interesting fellow because he was the first gym leader I thought had a crazy design with the whole baby face on a super muscular build, but that's just aiding in his character, in which he's a super tough looking guy, but on the inside he's super soft. I really like the fact that his gym only uses 2 Pokemon that are exclusive to Galar, unlike the other teams in the region which use other Pokemon from other regions. It makes him stand out the more, and pretty unique. It also aids in his character in the fact that he's more focused on having fun in gym battles rather than winning, which kind of makes him a pushover, but I don't know, it just kind of makes him more likable, in my opinion. What are your thoughts, Crane?
Yeah, building off that last part, I think it's super cool that, well, to me, Milo kind of reminds me of Brock from Pokemon Origins. He's not there to beat you, he's not there for the glory. He's there to have fun, and he's there to push new challengers forward in the gym challenge. And that's just a character I can vibe with. One other thing I will note is I think Milo's the only gym leader in Galar to not have a Gigantamax Pokemon, but that's okay because he's the very first gym leader, and that's Dynamax, not Gigantamax.
Yeah, that was dumb. Another thing I like about this region of Galar is that it introduces these things called League cards, which are just a nice little flavor text to give to the trainers and, the context in which they're in. For Milo's, it says that he's pretty liked in the town he's in, being the first town in the gym challenge, and he's apparently extremely strong with him being able to carry over 770 pounds of weight on him. He's very liked by the townsfolk, and who can't say that that's likable? For the next gym leader, we have Nessa, and how do I talk about this character without bringing up the interesting discourse surrounding her?
Simple. You think with your brain and not the other part.
Alright, on to actually talking about her character. Nessa, like many of the attractive female characters in Pokemon, happens to be a supermodel. How convenient, Game Freak. But in terms of personalities, I actually found her to be by far the dullest, as well as be, spoiler alert. Not only that, but her team is also a bit underwhelming. I mean, it's better than Kalos's, that's for sure. But having a Goldeen as the second gym leader with Swift Swim, and not even having a Water Dance or Rain Dance on her team is pretty bizarre. Like, Game Freak, why did you give them these abilities? Her Dynamax Dreadnought is pretty cool though, keeping up the trend with actually having them use the mechanic introduced in the region.
Yeah, Nessa, I feel like, even though her design is really good and not even in a Gooner way, there's just not too much to say about her, at least solely in the games. I don't remember the name of the short, but I remember there being one animated short that really shed some extra light on her.
What's it called?
Twilight Wings.
Twilight Wings, yeah, Twilight Wings.
And then there was a whole controversy about them animating a Pokemon that wasn't even in the game.
That's funny. But yeah, on her leak card, it states that her fans of both her Pokemon battling and modeling industry kind of get conflicted, so I think that's kind of funny. Like, they worry that one industry is going to affect the other, like the true parasocial weirdos they are in real life. I don't know. She's just probably memorized for the wrong reason, but I don't have much to say about Nessa.
The fact that she's the least interesting just goes to show that Galar's gym leaders are pretty interesting.
Alright, unlike the previous gym leader, I actually have a lot to say about the next one, Kabu. And just like Fantina, he apparently doesn't originate from the region you face him in, Galar, but is instead from a whole different region in Hoenn.
I really like how Sword and Shield introduces foreign gym leaders to the game, as that's a pretty cool concept that isn't really tapped into in the Pokemon franchise a lot. On top of that, he actually has good battle knowledge, with Kabu actually training his fire-type Pokemon against water types to make them strong. Now, this is not actually how you do that in competitive Pokemon. He would just be EV training if they were, serious about it. But it's good to see that the gym leader is actually taking their job seriously, as that's a rarity in this franchise, surprisingly. In terms of his team composition, he's the first gym leader to introduce a Gigantamax Pokemon in Cinescorch, one of my favorite Pokemon of the Galar region, by the way. And he actually has a pretty threatening team, with Will-O-Wisp cutting the physical stats of your Pokemon. On top of that, his gym challenge itself is pretty unique with the fact that you have to catch Pokemon, but it's a double battle in which the other trainer attacks your Pokemon, making it much harder to catch it. It's a really creative idea that, again, Game Freak surprisingly hasn't implemented before.
That being said, though, it is a pretty good challenge, and especially his gym actually feeling like a boss fight as the ending, the conclusion of the first act of the game.
Yeah. In terms of his lead card, it actually is an interview where they just comment on his fighting style and asking why he's been fighting so many weird, obscure Pokemon teams, with them being like, you're incorporating Will-O-Wisp into your team. Whoa, that's crazy. And I'm like, bro, they've been doing that since Gen 3. But yeah, Kabu's a pretty solid gym leader. Nothing more to say there. Alright, up next we have another Goonerbait character in B. I have no clue why, but I think Pokemon Sword and Shield has the most popular female characters out of any Pokemon game. Like, they are just absolutely obsessed with these girls. But we actually have to talk about the characters, and in terms of it, I actually find it pretty interesting. On B's league sheet, it says that her parents were really strict with her, which is why she has such a stoic personality and barely ever smiles in the game. It also is said that she has honed her judgment skills in battle so that she can remain calm even in the most dire situations. In fact, the only time she really shows emotion is when her Pokemon get hurt, which is pretty adorable, all things considered. In terms of her team composition, she has another Gigantamax Pokemon with Machamp having its really sick design, which I wish was a Mega Evolution, and using Surfetch in the region, which surprisingly enough does not have its signature move Meteor Assault. You'd think they'd have that, but I guess they consider B having that move too much for the 4th gym battle. I don't know, they should up the difficulty of the games, really. Alright, one last fun fact about B that I found on her lead card that was pretty interesting is apparently she's a fan of sweets, which is something pretty rare for someone of her character archetype. I mean, you'd think the martial artist would have a stricter diet, but apparently no. This has hilariously enough been a point of contention with her fans, which, again, having all the gym leaders this region be kind of like super celebrities is a nice touch I have to reinforce. I have no clue why she's so popular among the fanbase outside of, you know, obvious reasons.
But yeah, in terms of the other gym leaders, I'd rank B among the lower tiers alongside Nessa, because I just didn't find that much depth to her character, I'm gonna be honest. Still a good gym leader, mind you, just not the best in Galar.
Alright, and next up we have our first version exclusive gym leader being Allister, who masters in ghost types. And you might notice immediately that he's very Majora's Mask-esque. Not only because he's primarily seen wearing a mask, but he reminds me very much of the character, I believe his name is Kiame. I just played the game. And that he is very reserved and will always wear a mask and is very shy and wants to stay inside. Now, for different reasons than the characters in Majora's Mask, but I found the parallel interesting still. And the fact that he's a ghost type user just reminds me a lot of like the Kana section in the game. So I really think that part of Game Freak's inspiration might have been Majora's Mask. When we take a look at his team, we see that it actually fits him very well, with Cursula being a shield exclusive Pokemon, Yamask representing masks, and Gengar representing his potential, like, I don't know, inner rage. I don't really think he has any, it's just a big stretch. And also Mimikyu also being kind of a mask, kind of like he is. And even when we look at his rare league card in the game, that's the only instance you ever see him with his mask off. But the information that they present isn't too different from what you hear from the game. So I just think it's cool that the payoff is finally seeing what he actually looks like. Other than that, I think that Allister is an interesting character, and yeah, happy I picked Shield.
Alright, next up we have probably one of my favorite gym leaders in the entire region, by far the most interesting one. We have Opal, who I think is the actual oldest gym leader, besides Price from Johto. What makes her such an interesting gym leader is apparently she's been doing it for 70 years, and she's trying to scout out a new gym leader in Bede, which is something we haven't seen before in Pokemon. The idea that these gym leaders have to retire and choose a new lineage to move on with their life is a pretty interesting concept that I feel like should have been explored a long time ago. In terms of her personality and character, she kind of represents the fairy type in the same way I said for Valerie and Kalos, where she's not all sunshine and rainbows and sweet and goody
Like how fairies tend to get portrayed in modern pop culture.
Instead, she represents the more darker side of fairies, with her having kind of a snappy attitude, being quite aggressive, and even her team reflecting that with the fact that she has a Mawile that is super aggressive with Crunch and Draining Kiss, and Air Slash Togekiss, who unfortunately doesn't have Serene Grace, but I guess that would be a little too hard for the player. She once again also has a Gigantamax Pokemon.
Unk still got it. Anyway, one extra thing I wanted to point out is Sword and Shield does start out with great gym puzzles, and they kind of fall off later. I really like the idea of hers being a quiz, kind of like Sabrina's, except being executed differently in the battles. I just think that a pure buff or debuff was a little bit of missed potential, but considering she is easily my favorite gym leader in this game, I don't really care too much.
Although the questions she has in the gym are quite questionable, they range from stuff such as, what is Fairy weak to what is the breakfast I had today from that one trainer. I know you know what I'm talking about. It's just very bizarre. But yeah, Opal's one of the best gym leaders in Galar. Everyone agrees on that. Time to move on. Alright, up next, I think we have the best gym leader relationship out of any Pokemon game ever. And I know that sounds like a bit of exaggeration, but I mean it. The amount of actual subtextual conflict and engaging rivalry between Melony and Gordie is really good. Like, apparently Melony is Gordie's mother, and she wanted him to follow in her footsteps of being an Ice-type gym leader. But Gordie, being, an independent human being, chose the Rock-type because he flies with the type, I guess, more often. And it's heavily implied that Melony did not like this decision, as you can see from their league card art where Gordie is looking frustratingly angry away from the camera while Melony is in a seemingly mocking tone, gesturing at the camera. It's pretty interesting, especially in the fact that in both of their cards, it references a conflict they had in the past in which they butted heads, and the victor who came out on top was apparently Gordie, with this straining their relationship even further.
Now, personally, I never read their conflict I never read it as conflicty. I more so saw it as Gordon just kind of wanting some more independence. That being said, though, I think it's really interesting how we actually have two different characters that are both game exclusive, and yet the crux of their story is told through having those two different versions. It kind of reminds me of Black and White in that way, but I don't have too much more to say about them.
Another thing about Melony that I found was pretty interesting is she looks really soft and bubbly on the outside, but in her lore she's apparently really strict and cruel as a coach, having her trainers in her gym leaving non-stop, and the trainers that do exist in her gym being apparently really strong. I can't tell, the ice type sucks, so they probably get mowed through by the player, but that's actually pretty good, like, thematic undertones. Having the sweet, daintily lady be secretly ruthless is a quite dark turn for Pokemon, I gotta say. And Gordie, like the other characters in Galar, also has some subtext to his character, with the fact that apparently he's a chick magnet, with most of the trainers in his gym being young, attractive female trainers, which I just thought that was a fun touch to his character. But yeah, these two are definitely my favorite in Galar, and some of the best writing for the gym leaders up until this point.
Okay, coming up next, we have a pretty different gym. We have Piers. Now, personally, I like Piers. I don't really like him, but that's more than most people can say, for very good reasons that I'll let Plexi tear into later.
Okay, can I go?
No.
Wait, what? You don't tell me no! I go where I want to, and I gotta say, Piers is one of the worst gym leaders in all of Pokemon history. One, I like how he's the primary example people use when they say that this series has no voice acting. I mean, what is this absolutely embarrassing scene where he's apparently singing, and Team Yell is supposed to be cheering him on? I mean, they sound like he's booing him. And I would too! I mean, this guy is so lame! Then it comes to the fact that he's a complete stuck-up who's like, I actually don't want to become a part of the gym challenge in like a power spot so that we can do Gigantamaxing. I'm just going to stay in my own town. And then he wonders why his town becomes a dead zone. Like, bro, you did that to yourself. Apparently on his trainer card, he wants to replace Marty as like the gym leader for his gym. So that's why he invented Team Yell to basically harass her and be her army of simps. That's pretty sore. And then you have the fact that he apparently wants to be like a strongest dark type gym leader, but all his Pokemon do not run any competitive moves on his team. Pretty sure his Malamar has mostly physical moves, which if you know Malamar, he's like a special attacker. Yeah, I just don't like Piers just because of the laziness that went into his gym design, and it could have been one of the coolest gym battles. I mean, imagine you're in a rogue town where you have to buy shady medicine from all the gangsters around. You get attacked by merchants every single time you refuse to, and they lower your Pokemon stats, or I don't know, anything, just anything with the concept of a rogue town. It could have been so cool. Also, he's the only gym leader that doesn't use Gigantamaxing.
Okay, however, I do like that he's also, I think, the only gym leader in this game that takes actions during both of the climaxes involving Zacian and Zamazenta and Eternatus. Either order, but...
Yeah, I forgot about that. He does help out with Chairman Rose, who's... I don't want to get into how bad the story is, but yeah, he does help out with that.
Different video.
I'm gonna stop global warming for happening in 1,000 years.
We have to act now, and my target destination is a stadium full of people.
He accelerated. That's like the most extreme example of accelerationism. Jesus Christ. And last but not least, we have Raihan, the most horrific gym leader in this region, even though he has a 10-0 record against Leon. But the thing that makes Raihan so unique that me and many others pointed out is that he's the first gym leader that doesn't just have a type specialty, but actually has a theming, with his team being specializing in the Sandstorm weather effect. I feel like more gym leaders going forward should do this thing where they just have themings instead of type combination specialists, because we've seen that so many times throughout these entire regions. Another cool thing about Raihan is that he's very charismatic. I really like his animations that he did in the gym battle and gym challenge, as well as the fact that he's a streamer, so they had to put a lot of effort into his character and personality. I like how he's basically posing like a madman in every one of his photos. And also, he's another black gym leader, so that's a plus. Galar has a lot of black characters this region, which I feel like is nice representation.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more memorable gym leaders from this game. And I have to get my one huge complaint out of the way. What was that gym, bro? You walk in and you fight him. There's not even an optional trainer. There's not even a challenge. You just fight him.
I feel really hypocritical now that I mentioned that Piers has literally just straight line simulator.
Piers at least had gym, fights before the gym.
Listen,
Raihan has a room.
Raihan has so much aura farming, he's like, I don't need other gym trainers, it's just me.
Regardless, though, I think that the whole streamer archetype was good here, and I think it was also a great framework for what they did with Iono, the next generation. But yeah, Plexi got pretty much all my thoughts about Raihan out of the way. I think it's really cool that even though he's meant to be a dragon-type gym leader, he focuses more on the Sandstorm build.
And he's actually pretty hard because of that. I mean, it's kind of dumb how these gym challenges are like, we're going to test your skill as a player, and we're going to have you just fight against one typing so that you can just spam the same moves against them. That would really be a good challenge to test your skill.
Yeah, like you can't even come here with a fairy type because you get obliterated with Duraludon.
Yep, and that's just good game design.
And last up, because I actually played the DLC, we wanted to quickly mention Avery, Clara, and Peony. Now, again, in canon, they are gym leaders, or at least training to be for Avery and Clara's case, but it's not really shown too well in the gameplay that they have all 18 types as gym leaders, rather. I do really like Avery and Clara's character arcs. I know mean person becoming nice is nothing new, but I think they handled it pretty well. And Peony's just a lot of fun to be around. It makes you actually want to... I feel like the low-quality PNGs every time you unlock new legendaries with him is intentional. Because he's like trying to gas something up when it's like, it should be cool. You're like hunting down legendaries, even though it's so little effort put into it by himself. Anyway, their fights are fun, but I don't really have too much to say about them. I do really like Galarian Slowbro that both Avery and Clara use.
Overall, for being one of my least favorite regions of Pokemon, it has by far the strongest cast of gym leaders, right under Unova in my opinion. It is clear that Game Freak put a lot of thought and effort into their designs, personalities, and appeal, given the fact that they were meant to be celebrities in this region.
Overall, Sword and Shield is a pretty bland game in both of our opinions, but we also think the game is pretty heavily carried by the characters, not just the gym leaders.
Yeah, the character writing is surprisingly strong this generation, despite the nonsensical plot.
Character writing is that we need to act now.
So yeah, that's it for Galar region. I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. What do y'all think of the gym leaders, as well as any opinions on other characters of Pokemon Sword and Shield? Do you think Game Freak missed the mark, or do you think they have some of the best characterization and writing in the series? Tell us down below. Until then, I'll see you next time for the final region of Pokemon, Paldea, and its nefarious gym leaders, as we go into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. As always, if you enjoyed, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.